And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Welcome, Buccaneers fans, to the ultimate gridiron expedition that will set your hearts racing and sail your spirits to another possibly legendary postseason. This is RBLR Sports with the RBLR Bucs crew, your one-way ticket to the electrifying world of our beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Musab here with you, one of tonight's hosts who's feeling pretty darn fired up right now. Why is that? Because, folks, we have survived a rather interesting and emotional regular season. Now it's on to bigger things, a.k.a. the playoffs. Say what you want to say, but I don't think a lot of y'all were expecting us to make it happen. And to make things juicier, we face a team from the North, perhaps with a chance to avenge that loss from Week 3. To some, they remain the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're coming into our house looking much different than before. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're thinking, nah, they're the Philadelphia Chicks or the Philadelphia Eaglets. That being said, we have another juicy show for you tonight. And when I say we, I mean my partners in crime. Maybe you know them from before, or maybe this is your first time tuning into our show. So without further ado, to my right, he'll be dropping his hot takes like a top-tier NFL quarterback, be dropping dimes to his receiver core. He is Zach Blaine. Zach, talk to me, man. How does it feel to be in the playoffs? And remind me from before, before the season started, did you think we were going to make this happen?
Listen, man, it feels amazing to be in the playoffs, but I can't say that I didn't see it coming. I think I was one of the few people that saw us as a playoff team. I've had faith in Baker all year, so I can't really say I'm surprised.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. But then again, I don't remember. I was a little bit optimistic just because of the rather crappy division we're part of. To me, South is
Yeah.
basically like having the nicest crack house in the neighborhood.
Word.
So
Not wrong.
I'll get off my little soapbox and want to introduce to my other partner in crime to my left. He's got you covered like an impenetrable secondary defense. He is Carter Brantley. Carter, same question, man. How do you feel? And remind me, were you optimistic or pessimistic about the Buccaneers before this season started?
I was a little bit of both. I think I was cautionarily pessimistic. I was kind of, more on the boat of saying, oh well, the Bucs aren't very good, but neither is the NFC South. So like, who knows? I don't think I picked them to win the division. I'm pretty sure I picked the Falcons actually to win the division, which in hindsight, wasn't an awful pick, but it certainly wasn't a very good one either. But we'll get into all that. Yeah, I mean, like Musab mentioned, like we've been talking about, the Bucs won the NFC South. They're going to the playoffs for the 4th straight year. They took the division for the 3rd straight season. This is kind of an amount of success that's unprecedented in the history of Bucs, Buccaneer football. So that's pretty exciting. But we'll start with the game that clinched the division first because I think it's worth talking about. I know, it's a Week 18 game. A lot of teams are really banged up and kind of just limping to the finish line. The Bucs are certainly included in that sentiment. Unfortunately, they had, Baker was banged up, Rashad White sustained an injury during the game, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still, they only won 9-0. That's not a pretty game. That's not a fun game. That's not Baker Mayfield lighting it up and Rashad White running for touchdowns. That's a gritty one. So, especially against a 2-15 team, the worst team in football. So I'll start there. Does the lack of offensive production against the worst team in football concern you? Or maybe you're kind of dismissive of it. It's just one game. They're in the playoffs. That's all that matters. Zach, we'll start with you, brother.
I mean, does it concern me? Like, I think you'd be crazy to say it doesn't concern you a little bit. Do I think that it's a repeatable thing? I don't think they're going to come out like that 2 weeks in a row. We've gone in our little win streak. I call it a win streak. Our final month of the season, I think we were averaging like 20 points a game. So I'm not stressing one bad outing against a bad team. I think their defense is a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for. I think that's the one strong suit that Carolina has. And by strong, like in quotes, because anything is strong to that team at this point. But I do think that that's their better aspect of their team is their defense. So I'm not too upset about it. Like I have faith in our offense still.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, that's a fair take. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with it too much. Obviously, you mentioned the defense, and going back to that sort of, I know that Carolina's defense, like you said, they're the better of the two halves of the team. You're looking at Bryce Young versus that defense. I mean, I guess they're the better of the two halves of the team, but I don't know how much stock I put into it. So I'm gonna meet you halfway. I'm gonna say, maybe the lack of offensive production isn't a huge concern, but it's certainly something to think about, especially with Baker's injury. He did look quite a bit banged up. He didn't look like his normal explosive kind of dynamic self. I do hope that he is able to rest this week. That's all I'll say. And
I'm not mad about the extra day of rest.
For sure, absolutely. But Musab, how about you? Are you concerned about this kind of step back in offensive production, or are you thinking maybe maybe it can bounce back this week?
For me, I think I don't want to just simplify it as this, but to me, it just seems all about the momentum. I don't think we really had much going on against the Panthers. And I don't know. It's just odd just because you're thinking, we ought to just run them over. I'm happy that we got the win, of course. But then again, I mean, now that we're coming into the postseason, now it really matters. It's do or die. Well, it was do or die even against the Panthers, but I don't know. Every single game is different. I feel like, this happens with a lot of teams around the league throughout the season. So maybe it was just one of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely one of those games for sure. Yeah, I mean, every team has one of those games. Like you said, the team that the Bucs are facing this weekend, they had one of those games. As they're taking on the Eagles, and they have had one of those months or something. Like they've been 1-5, and we'll get into that for sure. But before we get into too much playoff stuff, I do want to kind of have more of a retrospective look at both this past week and the season. So who was your player of the week this past week, Zach?
I mean, this past week, I feel like it'd be dumb to not give it to our kicker, to Chase McLaughlin.
Yeah.
But also, I'm going to go Antoine Winfield, man. I've said his name so much this year, and it almost feels like an easy answer at this point because every game he makes an impact. But for this game alone, he saved what would have been a touchdown to make it a much closer game. They would have actually got the lead at that point. So yeah. I'm going to go Antoine Winfield on this one.
All right. Hey, Antoine Winfield's. You can say that every week. It's always going to be a good answer. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with Chase McLaughlin, the kicker. I know it's kind of a quirky, fun little thing to say, like, oh, the kicker's the player of the week, teehee. But no, he went 3 for 3. He was the only source of offense for the Bucs. He was their only source of scoring. So, and he hit a big kick. I think he hit a 50+ yarder within the game. I mean,
yeah, I think it was 57.
Yeah, I think he might have hit 2 of them. So it's tough. It's tough to give it to anyone else because everyone else was just kind of meh. Speaking of Antoine Winfield, I know that you just named him your player of the week, and I named Chase McLaughlin as mine. But Antoine Winfield Jr., great pick. He was not named to the Pro Bowl. We had already talked about that last week. We broke some news with Mike Evans winning, and being able to make it onto their Pro Bowl roster as Deuces Musab. We hope he's able to find some solid Wi-Fi. But but he has not only been snubbed from the Pro Bowl, now he has been snubbed from the players. I want to preface it with that. The players elected first team All-Pro. There's still the AP All-Pro, which is like the sports writers voting on it. So this isn't – it's not the official All-Pro yet, but it's still discouraging to see him get snubbed yet again.
It makes no sense. Like, legitimately, the dude is the best safety in football right now. I will go to bat with that all day against anybody, any player. Like, the fact that he's snubbed is insane to me from both the Pro Bowl and the players. Like, you would think the players would get it right.
Right.
There must be something that we're missing because he is a stud.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because the NFC Pro Bowl was like, all right, that's not even
Yeah,
explainable.
that's a popularity contest at that point. Like it is what it is.
For sure. But that one's not even like in the realm of like explainability or like I don't even know how to explain it. But that one's not even I can't even wrap my head around it. This one's at least a little like Jesse Bates and Kyle Hamilton both had fantastic seasons. They are both really, really good safeties. If I'm with you, it should have been Antoine Winfield Jr., but I can at least sort of wrap my head around a world where Kyle Hamilton and Jesse Bates might be better than Antoine Winfield Jr. I don't agree with that opinion, but it's like an arguable opinion. The Buda Baker over Antoine Winfield Jr. one was tough. That one was pretty funny.
Baker's been almost non-existent this year.
Right, and he's on a non-existent team with all due respect to the Cardinals. That was really, really weird. But this All-Pro one, still tough, but at least it's like, all right, Jesse Bates and Kyle Hamilton are really good. So I guess I understand. But taking a look around the division, because I know we mentioned the Falcons earlier today. The Falcons and the Saints played what ended up being a meaningless game, unfortunately for them, but fortunately for the Bucs, obviously, where the Saints took home a huge, huge victory. They were running up the score at the end of the game to try to hit some guys' milestones for their contract. What are your thoughts on the Saints running up the score on Atlanta? I figured this would be worth mentioning because it's two division rivals and it's kind of fun and it involves
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I am so tired of these old heads out here. Oh, you're in victory formation. Who gives a rat's ass, man? It's a game. You get paid to play a child's game. Like, enjoy it, have fun, get your ass kicked, walk on about your day. It's just the most annoying thing in the world to see people get irritated about it. People calling for Jameis Winston to lose his job and blah blah blah. Like, bro.
He's a backup anyways. He doesn't have a
hated
job.
Jameis when he was in Tampa. I hated him.
Yeah.
Only because of his play on the field. But he's always been a locker room guy. Like, everyone on every team he's been on has went to bat for Jameis Winston. I don't think anyone has ever said a bad thing about him as a teammate. Bro, he wanted to get Jamal Williams a touchdown. Like, just be okay with it. Move on about your day. You already got beat. They got a pick to the 1. Deal with it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a very weird backlash. I mean, I understand it from a certain like old school, like, oh well, don't. It is weird to run a play out of victory formation. I
agree.
We'll say that. Like, I don't agree with like all the outrage and all the weird like, oh, what the heck is he doing? But it is strange to run a play out of victory formation. Like that's weird. And next year, when those two teams play against each other, if the Saints are in victory formation and you want to, you know what I mean? Like you're opening.
I think that's any team at this point, though. Any team that saw that, if you play the Saints next week, or not next week, but next year, bro, I'm going. You get in victory formation, I'm lighting everybody up. I'm not taking it easy. I'm not taking a play off on you. But that's a risk you take. Like,
for sure.
I always tell my kids when they get hurt or something, when they're doing something dumb, like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you get. But you got to go into it knowing the risks of that. And, like, it just feels like we're on a baseball podcast. Like, not podcast, but like a baseball. Like, we're learning about baseball. Someone does a bat flip, and it's the end of the freaking world.
Right. No, for sure.
It's 7 more points. You already got demolished. Just walk it off. Arthur Smith, you're all pissy. Well, guess what? Now you're fired. So,
yeah.
Suck, brother.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So I will say if the Saints come back next year and, something weird happens, whether it's against the Falcons or anyone else, I don't want to hear a peep from them.
Exactly. Like, just, take your punishment and deal with it.
Yeah. You made your bed, you got to lay in it kind of thing. So I'm kind of on both camps. I definitely don't see it being as a big deal, but I also am like, yeah, well, if you're going to do this, then you kind of got to expect something else to happen, unfortunately. And that could lead to some other problems, which who knows? But it's the Saints, they've got the Bounty Gate thing. They've got the weird, Sean Payton thing that they had to deal with and all that stuff. So I'm not surprised that they're involved in another weird scandal, but that's another road that we will not discuss. You mentioned Arthur Smith getting fired. So I wanted to hear your reaction to that, because I have not been an Arthur Smith fan all year. He's been holding back a lot of really talented players on that roster. So I wanted to hear were you surprised that he got fired? I was a bit. I was a bit surprised from the Falcons' perspective. I thought they were going to give him another year with like an actual NFL quarterback, but maybe you're not.
See, I guess I just I had been hearing stuff throughout the year that Arthur Smith was on the hot seat.
Right, for sure.
And understandably so. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, he's got some of the most talented players ever. Not ever, but you get the point. Like, some of the most athletic players at their positions. Like, Kyle Pitts is probably one of the most athletic tight ends I've ever seen. Not one of the best, just the most athletic.
For sure.
So when you have guys like this, and you're using Jonnu Smith. Like, Jonnu Smith, I believe, had more touchdown catches than Kyle Pitts. And I don't think that's a skill diff level. I think that's just a coaching game plan kind of thing. So, and then they were using Bijan Robinson sparingly. Like, it's
a weird season.
Yeah, it just felt like he didn't know what he was doing. Like, oh, we took Bijan, but we didn't really need him because we have Algier. So let's just not use him. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And to see it play out throughout the season, I'm not shocked that he got fired. I think, honestly, without sounding too hateful, he kind of deserved it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true. He definitely didn't perform up to expectations. The team didn't perform up to expectations. And yeah, I mean, I'm with you. He definitely deserved the boot. And it's unfortunate for the Bucs now because now they don't get to play an Arthur Smith-led Falcons team. The Falcons might mess around and find a competent head coach now. Gosh darn it. You know? So now the Bucs might have to play a better Falcons team, which sucks for them. But you know, for the Falcons, it's a lot more fun because now we might actually get to see their relatively talented skill players actually, you know, have the ball thrown their way or get
play skill positions.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not be an extra left tackle or whatever they were doing to poor Kyle Pitts these past few years. But one thing that's definitely not going to get fired, it's definitely if you wear this to a job interview, if you wear this gear to any type of it, for all the NFL head coaches out there, you got to cop some RBLR gear. Go to the RBLR shop. shop.rblrsports.com. Definitely check that bad boy out. You can find some Rays, Bucs, Lightning, and Rowdies gear. Even if you're not going to a Bucs interview or a Rays or Lightning Rowdies interview, they'll be like, oh, RBLR, that's fire. We got to give you the job now. So we'll also give you a promo code, CANNONS. That's Cannons. Type that bad boy in and you get 10% off everything on your order. So definitely check that out. If you're a prospective NFL head coach looking to secure yourself a job. So no, but all jokes aside, moving on to our second half of the show, we're going to be talking this Bucs Eagles matchup because it's it's playoffs and this is the biggest game of the season and all that. Definitely really excited to see how it all plays out. But the Bucs are division champs now. It's the playoffs for 4 straight years, and I want to take kind of a bigger, broader perspective on it because this is the most successful run in franchise history. You could argue, making the playoffs 4 straight times is impressive for any NFL team, but especially for the Bucs because they were the Yucks for all those years. They were really, really just a putrid franchise in regards to being a competitive football team. But now they've made the playoffs for 4 straight years. But looking back at this kind of era of success, are they the worst team that has made the playoffs in the past 4 years for the Bucs, in your opinion?
Oh,
it's a tough one, right? Yeah.
I think that we are better than last year's team with Brady at the helm.
Wow. Okay.
I think that. I mean, statistically, just at quarterback, Baker Mayfield has had a better season than Tom Brady had last year.
Sure. Yeah. Production-wise, for sure.
I mean, he's not the greatest of all time. He's not Tom Brady. I'm not saying that. As much as I love him, I'm realistic, okay? But I think that this team has more potential than last year's team. We have some younger guys who are putting in work. So I think a little more hopeful this playoffs than I was last playoffs, even seeing everything that's kind of gone awry for us at certain points in the season. Array, whatever that word.
Awry. Yeah, no, you're good. All right. Yeah, no, I'm with you. They have it also helps that I don't want to say this to sound rude, but the NFL just seems worse this year. There's
Mm-hmm.
been so much tumultuous
How
situations.
many backup quarterbacks are playing right now?
For
Like,
sure, right. So yeah, the league seems to be in a bit of a decline since last season. They're not playing the Cowboys; they're playing the Eagles, who have gone 1-5 over their last 6 games. We'll get into that. They have a better record than they did last year. They got to play some easier teams though, because a lot of the teams that were good last year were not even close to being as good this year, for whatever reason. So it's interesting. I just thought it was kind of a cool thought process. They're definitely not better or even close to being as good as the first 2 years for sure.
well, yeah, I mean, 100%.
Absolutely. But
If I'm not mistaken, just to add on to 4 years straight, we are the only NFC team to make the playoffs the last 4 years.
yeah, and
At one
that's
point, every other team has missed the playoffs at some point.
for sure. Yeah, I mean that's definitely really, really, really impressive. But again, kind of taking another broader step back, where would you rank the Bucs in terms of the actual playoff teams that are in this tournament?
Ooh.
I don't know, because in my mind they're probably at the bottom if we're being completely honest.
Do you think they're dead last, or is
I
it
do.
See, I don't think we're dead last. I think
Maybe the Packers are dead last, or maybe the Texans.
I'm taking us over the Packers, the Texans, probably the Seahawks, bro.
I think the Seahawks aren't in the playoffs though.
Are they not? I thought they made the
No,
playoffs.
it's the
No,
Rams. It's
the Rams. Sorry, yeah, my bad, my
No,
fault.
you're good.
Maybe the Rams. I don't know. They're
They're
kind
tough.
of hit or miss. They're the same kind of team we are, with a little bit
sure.
better record, I believe.
Mhm.
So I don't think we're the bottom. I don't think we're the top.
For
I
sure.
think we're
Yeah.
right in there where the Eagles are. Like, I know the Eagles' record 11-5 looks really nice, but let's not forget at one point they were 10-2, 10-1. Like,
Yeah.
they were a dominant team to start the year. I don't think that they are that good. I think the switch from their D coordinator to Matt Patricia was a mistake, but I'm not mad about it, because now I think that makes our odds better. But I do think that we're right there around where the Eagles are at. Like, I'd put us middle of the road, like towards the bottom. We're the top of the bottom half of the playoff teams.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm like I said, I'm probably going to put them at the bottom just because they lost to the Texans in pretty embarrassing fashion. They managed to beat the Packers, which was really impressive. So I think the Bucs and the Packers are pretty much on even ground. But yeah, I don't know, man. That the past few weeks have been tough, and the playoff field is relatively competitive. The Rams have the Super Bowl experience. They've got some veterans. They've also got some young talent. I think their coaching staff is head and shoulders above the Bucs. Raheem Morris has done a phenomenal job with that defense. Obviously, the Sean McVay of it all. He's still one of the best offensive minds in football. So I think that the other teams have a lot of distinct advantages over the Bucs. But then again, it's football, any given Sunday, all those cliches. So just because the Bucs aren't necessarily near the top of the heap doesn't mean they can't sneak out a win this weekend. So speaking of this weekend, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. So we'll get right into it. What about Baker's injury? Because we have to start. I want to start with the kind of the Bucs side of things from the Bucs perspective. How concerned are you with Baker's injury going into Sunday?
This is the main reason I wish we could have locked it up at the Saints game, because I would have loved to have Baker rest last week. Like, if we didn't need the win, I would have been cool with throwing Trask out there for the whole 4 quarters. Like, give him the whole game. We don't need it. Play our backups. We're good. Honestly, almost feel like we still should have done that, because I think we still would have won over the Panthers. Like, they didn't score anything. So Trask needed 1 field goal to win the game. It not bothers me, but worries me a little bit, because he didn't look like himself last week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's any way around that. But I will say he also didn't take too many big hits this last week. So that's kind of like, maybe the extra day is good enough. And the fact that he didn't play as hard as he normally does kind of helps it. But it does worry me a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think we should, the fans and the coaching staff just needs to keep their eyes on it, because you want to get prepared, you want to have a game plan in place, you want, your team to be as ready as possible through practice, but at the same time, oh man, you don't you don't want to make that ankle worse.
Exactly, and it's if we plan on him being the guy for the next few years, I almost feel like I'd rather be safe than sorry with him. I know, like the guy for the next few years, we didn't expect that coming into it, but he's only the second Tampa Bay quarterback to ever throw for 4,000 yards, 25 plus touchdowns, and less than 10 or 10 or less interceptions. So
That's true.
if he's our guy, it just feels like we've got to be careful with him. And I think the fact that we didn't lock up the Saints, the division at the Saints game, that we had to play him, and it almost may have made it worse, is my concern.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't make it better. That's for sure. He didn't get a chance to heal up and do his thing and be able to kind of rest. Unfortunately, he had to go out there, try to make some plays, and yeah, like you said, he looked rough doing it at some points. So yeah, the injury is certainly a concern for me as well. But from the Bucs perspective, I mean, they get to take on the Eagles. I mean, I hate to say get to, because the Eagles were really good at one point this year, but my goodness, they've been struggling recently, 1-5. So how happy are you that the Bucs get to face them instead of the Cowboys? Because there was a world of possibility. I mean, not a realistic world, but there was a chance that Philadelphia could have beaten the Giants and then the Cowboys lose to the Commanders. That's something that could have happened. So are you really excited that the Bucs got the Eagles instead of the Cowboys?
Overly excited.
Overly excited. Oh, wow.
I have confidence in Tampa against both of these teams in different aspects. I'm more scared of Dallas's defense than I am of of Philadelphia's defense. But I think that we have a better chance all around, especially with the injuries that Philadelphia occurred in this game.
Yeah,
I feel
there's
like,
a lot of them.
yeah, I feel like we are in a better position to win a playoff game against Philadelphia than we are Dallas.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. I'm definitely really, really looking forward to this matchup. I think it's going to be hopefully a little more competitive than the Cowboys matchup would have been. Because, like you said, the injuries, they've been struggling as of late, really, really mightily. And yeah, I mean, it's just a huge list of guys that are at least questionable for the Eagles. So it's a tough thing. I mean, pretty much every single skill position except for Dallas Goedert is questionable.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think they're expected to play all of them, but they're going to be a little banged up, which is tough to see, especially if you're an Eagles fan. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty favorable matchup for the Bucs. Other than, like we've been talking about, maybe the Packers and the Rams, I think the Eagles were the best they were going to get, pretty much. So yeah, I don't know. We'll definitely see how it plays out, obviously, but I'm pretty excited about this matchup in terms of the Bucs. But shifting our focus kind of to the Eagles side of things, they've, like we've been talking about, they've had a really up and down season. Started off 10-1, finished off the season 1-5, 1-6, whatever. Just really, really bad. Really playing poorly. They against some really bad teams. They took some L's against 3 non-playoff teams: the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a fringe non-playoff team, but man, the Cardinals and the Giants ain't nothing fringe about them. They're bad. So which Eagles team are you kind of expecting Sunday? Are you expecting, the first half, or are you expecting this most recent Philadelphia team?
That's a hard question to answer, because
of course
I've never seen a team turn it around in one game.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, I've seen teams where they start to look better. I mean, like Tampa did, in their 1-6 stretch, we started looking better each and every game, and then finally we kind of broke through that wall. Philadelphia has not looked like they are going to break through a wall anytime soon.
Yeah,
there has been nothing impressive about them in these last 5 games or last 6 games to tell me that, yeah, you know what? They just got to make this one little tweak, and then they're going to be a good team again.
No, absolutely.
So I'm expecting to see the most current Philadelphia team, not the first half Philadelphia team.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just asking because it's tough. The playoffs are always a different animal, as the old folks like to say. It's a different brand of football, and they're a super talented team. All the qualms about their recent performances aside, they've got one of the best teams in football on paper. Their roster from top to bottom doesn't have a lot of holes in it. There are certainly some flaws, of course, that have been exposed mightily in the recent weeks. Their secondary, their linebackers, just their general overall coverage has been really bad, and their rush defense can be a little bit leaky at times. But my goodness, that defensive line is still one of the most dominant forces in football. Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, and Hassan Reddick, and then Fletcher Cox and is an afterthought. I mean, that's pretty intense, especially when you take into account the Bucs' interior offensive line being such a problem and kind of hamstringing the Bucs at certain points and throughout the season. So I'm hoping that that doesn't rear its ugly head. And yeah, I mean, like I said, the defense travels, and the Eagles have not been playing well defensively recently. So I don't know. It's going to be really tough to see how they bounce back from these poor performances and try to regain some of that momentum from the beginning of the year, because they had quite a bit of it built up. But it just kind of fell apart there. So moving on to our next segment, we're doing this every week, and this week's no different. It's the playoff edition, though. So it's the playoff edition of Over Under. Zach, I know you've got some over-unders for us. Hit them with it.
All right, first one, a little bit of a fun one, because, Philly is known for one big thing, right?
Oh, man. Philly cheesesteaks, right?
Exactly.
Right.
No, that would be the tush push. The dumbest play in all of sports. But do you think we see over or under 4.5 tush pushes in this game?
I'm going to go under. Not because it's not an effective, like it is a stupid play.
The dumbest, but it is one of the most effective plays.
100%, yeah, 100%. Really stupid, but stupid effective as well. So I'm going to go under. I just don't think they find themselves in that many close yardage situations, although there are constantly jokes and memes all over Twitter about DeAndre Swift as soon as he reaches the 1 yard line, just like pulling up and stopping so that Jalen Hurts can tush push his way to another rushing touchdown. But that's neither here nor there. I do think they go under. I'm curious to see how Jalen Hurts, like how his finger injury, that's going to play.
It was all like this.
Yeah, it looked funky. I mean, I get kind of squeamish with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at, and it's going to be hard to play with, I'd imagine. So I don't know how that's going to affect his throwing motion, obviously, but also, the tush push, because, the whole thing is, you're kind of getting in there with all the big boys, and I don't know, your finger could get bent the wrong way, and it could get even worse.
Fingers in that pile.
Right. Because I mean, everyone's punching at the ball in those situations, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm going to go under, not only because I don't know that they get in those situations super often, but also even if they do, I don't know, maybe Hurts' finger plays a bit of a bigger role than I think people are expecting. So I'm going to go under after that long-winded diatribe. Zach, how about you? Over, under on the?
I'm going over because I feel like it's going to affect the throwing motion. Like the same thing for you, but but kind of the opposite outcome. I do think that his finger is going to affect his throwing motion and his ability to grip the ball. So I see a lot of just covering up with both hands, hitting the hole, not even hitting the hole, really just getting pushed into the hole.
Right.
But I'm going over.
Okay, going over. I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's a very whimsical, silly kind of thing to be trying to guess.
And I had to go lighthearted on the first
one.
Of
course. It's
the next one is, do we think, I believe Rachaad White is averaging 3.6 yards a carry this season. Do we see over or under 3.5 yards a carry?
Oh, you're asking the president of the Rachaad White fan club.
I had to do a Rachaad White based question this week.
No, of course. I hate to massacre my boy like this, but I'm gonna have to go under. I don't think the Bucs run the ball very well this week. I think that Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, whatever combination they have out there on the interior is just going to wreak havoc defensively. Poor Cody Mauch, Robert Hainsey, and Aaron Stiney. I mean, that's just those names next to each other. That's not a pretty sight.
It's not pretty.
It's not fun. It's not fun to think about the concept of one of those guys just absolutely just discarding one of those Bucs interior offensive linemen and just making Rachaad White's life very difficult. So I'm going to go under. I have a bad feeling about that, so I'm going to go under.
All right, well, how the turns have tabled. I'm going over, brother.
Man.
I think we're going to see some outside runs. I think that's our best bet this game is outside runs. I don't think we're going to do it up the middle. I think we're going to try. I guarantee you Dave Canales tries. But don't see us being successful up the middle. But I think we're going to break a few big ones on the outside because outside of their defensive front, there's not much that scares me on this Philadelphia team, or on this Philadelphia defense, I should say. So I could very well see us getting some big outside runs and bumping up that average a little bit.
Yeah, and I hope you're right because, like you mentioned, that linebacker group for the Eagles, it's
not good, bro.
Not good. Not pretty. Whatever negative connotation you want to describe or adjective, whatever. Yeah, it's not good. Shaquille Leonard, Nakobe Dean. I mean, they're. Woo, yeah, it's tough. But so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him break off a few runs. But I do think, like you mentioned, the idea of Dave Canales punching it up the middle because it's the Dave Canales thing to do.
Exactly.
I do think that drags the average down enough to put it under just because, like, he's going to try it. Like, it's Dave Canales. We're going to see the Bucs in a 2-minute drill, and he's going to hand it off out of the shotgun to Rachaad White up the middle because that's just what Dave Canales does. And if you're expecting anything else at this point of the season, I don't know what to tell you. Unfortunately, I do see that happening, and I do see that dragging the average down quite a bit. But we're nearing the end of our episode. But before we go, prediction time. This might be the last prediction and over under of the season, of the year. Or not.
How you guys say it like that, man?
I know. And Mr. Glass half empty over here, but hey, there's a possibility.
It's possible. I'll give you that.
For sure. So I gotta preface it with that, especially because it's looking rough for both teams. So this could be some ugly football. So what's your prediction? What do you think is going to happen? Who do you think is going to win by how much?
Tampa Bay wins it 24-16.
Ooh,
Philadelphia does not correct their issues on offense. You saw what the Cardinals did to them. You saw what the Giants did to them, and that Giants loss. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they put their starter or they put their backups in halfway through. They were already getting their ass beat halfway through. So I am going for Tampa to play better than last week and for Philadelphia to play like we've seen the last 6 weeks. So I got Philly losing 24-13 or 24-16.
Wow, 24-16. All right. Hey, fair enough. Oh, you're going to hate me for this one. I'm going to go Eagles 16-0.
Not a chance, not a snowball's chance in hell, brother.
I mean, look, I get it. The Eagles defense has been really, really suspect over the past few weeks, but my goodness, that Panthers game, the Bucs looked awful. And the Saints game the week before that, they looked awful. They've got 2 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks, and they both came in the Saints game in the fourth quarter. They looked really bad last week. And I just think Baker's injury is a lot more serious than he's letting on. The Bucs struggled last year in the postseason. It's playoff football. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to win it all. I'm not saying they're a good football team. I'm pretty low on the Bucs, playoff chances. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong because I would love to keep talking about the Bucs playing football. Obviously, like the whole point of the show. So
how confident are you in your?
Oh, not at all. I've been incorrect with so many of my predictions this year.
I only ask that because I'm willing to put up a whole bunch of money on it. Like,
no, I am not. No.
$2.70.
For those listings, we already do have a $2.70 bet that the Bucs are going to lose. I would not put any money on the Bucs being shut out. In fact, I would bet that they would score points. This is just what I think is going to happen. I don't know. I'm definitely not a gambling man, except for the $2.70 I have against Mr. Zach Blaine, because I got to win some money off you, man. You won the fantasy football league this past year.
I was gonna say, man, fantasy football was fun, and I already won a bet with one Brantley. Now it's a full circle. I got to take from the whole family, man.
Oh man, next you're gonna be hitting up my dad saying, "Hey man, I want to put a free
jazz CD or something. I'm
For
getting
sure.
something from him.
For sure, yeah. I mean, hey, he's got Boneyard by Tom Brantley if you're interested in checking it out.
Go check it out.
For sure, he makes like a 1/100th of a penny every time someone listens to it. So
That's gonna be on repeat all night now.
Yeah, for sure. It is on Spotify. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can probably find it there too. But anyways, after that long diatribe about my father's trombone playing in his CD that I'm sure no one was interested in except for me. But we're nearing the end of our episode. We really appreciate y'all tuning in and listening. Like I said, I hope we're coming back at you next week with a Bucs victory. That'd be a lot of fun talking about a divisional matchup. If not, it's going to be a long off season. We're going to have a lot to talk about, so stay tuned. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button if you're trying to, stay plugged in, or you can give us a follow at RBLR Sports on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. My boy Zach Blaine's going to be on there constantly, and I know if the Bucs win or lose, regardless of the result, Zach Blaine, as he has, his father of the year moment right there, taking care of the kiddos, got to do what you got to do. But you'll see his cute mug on there on TikTok if regardless of the results. So definitely check us out there. But then again, appreciate y'all for tuning in. And as always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.